What could this mean with mass killings and sectarian tensions rising? Syria's fragile government struggles to hold the country together. Is this a temporary security crisis or the start of another deadly conflict? This and many more will be explored in today's Flash News. Good afternoon and welcome. I am Tabitha Ako. Let's begin. A military crackdown against pro-Assad insurgents in Syria has sparked the worst violence in years, leaving hundreds dead and deepening the country's sectarian crisis. Between the government, forces and Assad loyalties quickly escalated into mass executions and communal killings, raising concerns about Syria's stability. Well, the violence erupted in Latakia, the heartland of the Alawite sect. Which supported former President Bashar al-Assad before he was ousted in December. Assad's rule, which lasted for over half a century, left the Alawite minority closely associated with his regime. The new Sunni leader of the government under President Ahmed al-Shara promised inclusivity, but the events of recent days have exposed the fragility of Syria's transitions. Reports from Syria's state news agency Sana indicate that Assad loyalists launched attacks on government checkpoints, leading to retaliation from security forces. However, human rights groups and independent monitors suggest that government forces also carried out mass executions in what appear to be revenge killings. The UK-based Syrian Network for Human Rights reported that 779 people were killed, with deaths even split between Assad loyalists and forces loyal to the new government. Eyewitness accounts, along with video evidence verified by CNN, showed armed groups committing atrocities while talking about purifying Syria. This has fueled fears that sectarian divisions, long suppressed under Assad, could now erupt into open conflict. The interim government insists it will hold those responsible accountable. But can Syria's fragile leadership truly prevent another cycle of violence? President Shara has condemned the violence, blaming it on Assad's remaining forces and accusing foreign powers of fueling unrest. In an attempt to restore confidence, he announced the formation of an independent investigative committee to review the event and hold perpetrators accountable. However, it's still skeptical as similar promises of justice have failed in the past. Shara's government has also signaled that it sees the crackdown as an unavoidable challenge in establishing order. In an interview with Reuters, he spoke about holding those responsible accountable as maintaining control remains the government's priority. And the international response to Syria's crisis has been swift but divided. The United States condemned the killings, calling them massacres carried out by radical Islamist terrorists, including foreign jihadists. Well, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio reaffirmed Washington's support for Syria's ethnic and religious minorities and called for accountability. Meanwhile, the European Union expressed deep concern, urging Syria's government to protect civilians and uphold international law. Some EU leaders, however, took a more pragmatic stance, suggesting that while the violence is troubling, supporting the new government's stability is crucial. France's foreign minister warned that Europe could not avert another destabilized Syria, calling for more engagement rather than isolation. Regional players are also weighing in. Turkey, which gained influence in Syria after Assad's fall, accused Iran of attempting to destabilize the country, an accusation that led Tehran to summon Turkey's ambassador. At the same time, satellite images showed crowds gathering outside Russia's Kyiv air base, suggesting some Syrians are looking to Moscow for protection. But well, would that come along? The latest bloodshed is not an isolated event, but a symptom of deeper divisions within Syria. Sectarian wounds remain unhealed, and unless the government addresses issues like political representation and economic inequality, future unrest is likely. Beyond Syria, the conflict is also testing international alliances. Western governments are divided between supporting stability and demanding accountability, while regional powers like Turkey and Iran continue to compete for influence. With tensions rising, will Syria emerge as a stable nation, or is it destined for another cycle of war and destruction? Well, moving over to another report in a new development. Former Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte was detained on Tuesday after authorities confirmed receiving an international criminal court warrant for his arrest on charges of crimes against humanity. Duterte, infamous for his brutal anti-drug crackdown that left thousands dead, was taken into custody at Manila's main airport after returning from Hong Kong. While human rights groups hail this as a major step toward accountability, Duterte's allies claim the arrest is politically driven and lacks legal grounds. Is this a long overdue reckoning, or is the ICC's move reopening political wounds in a deeply divided country? The ICC has been investigating Duterte's drug war, which started in 2016 and led to the death of more than 6,000 people, according to official police records. However, independent human rights groups argue that the actual number of extrajudicial killings could be much higher. Many victims were young men from poor communities, executed without trial by police and vigilantes under Duterte's orders to kill drug suspects who resist arrest. So pathetic. Well, the former president has repeatedly dismissed these allegations, at times denying extrajudicial killings, while also boasting that he personally ordered police to carry out executions. He withdrew the Philippines from the ICC in 2019, claiming it had no authority over him, but the court maintained jurisdiction over crimes committed during the country's membership from 2016 to 2019. Duterte reacted defiantly to his arrest, questioning the legal basis of the warrant. His former spokesperson, Harry Roque, echoed this sentiment, calling the arrest an unlawful detention since, in his view, the ICC no longer has jurisdiction over the Philippines. But does Duterte's withdrawal from the ICC truly shield him from prosecution, or is this a test of international justice? Well, the arrest has put President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. in a difficult position. Marcos, who was elected in 2022, has distanced himself from Duterte's brutal tactics, but still maintains political ties with Duterte's allies. The Philippine government has indicated that it may comply with the ICC's request, though it remains unclear whether Marcos will fully cooperate or attempt to shield the former leader. Meanwhile, Duterte's supporters continue to argue that the ICC is overstepping its boundaries. The warrant has no basis because it was issued after exit from the ICC. However, international law does not work that way. Withdrawal from the courts does not erase past crimes. For victims, families, and international human rights organizations, Duterte's arrest is a long overdue step toward justice. Brian Law, Deputy Asia Director at Human Rights Watch, described the detention as a critical step for accountability in the Philippines, as it could bring victims and their families closer to justice and send a clear message that no one, absolutely no one, is above the law. Duterte's drug war, often described as a state-sponsored killing, has long been condemned by the United Nations, also even the European Union and various advocacy groups. The ICC's warrant suggests that evidence against him is strong, but the case is far from over. The Philippines government now faces a critical decision. Will it comply with international law and hand it over to the ICC, or will political maneuvering keep him out of the court's reach? If extradited, Duterte would stand trial for crimes against humanity, a process that could take years but would set a major precedent for global justice. Well, the coming weeks will determine whether Duterte's arrest marks the beginning of true accountability for the Philippines, or if political forces will intervene to protect him. And if Marcos' administration refuses to cooperate, it risks damaging the Philippines' international reputation and straining diplomatic relations with Western nations. Will this be a historic moment for justice, or will Duterte escape prosecution like so many powerful figures before him? The world is watching, and we also are watching. Wow, let's keep watching. Moving over to Elon Musk's X. Elon Musk claimed on Monday that his social media platform X was the target of a massive cyber attack that led to widespread outages, leaving millions of users unable to load posts. He insisted that a well-resourced group or even a nation-state was behind the attack. Was this a genuine cyber assault on the world's richest man's platform, or is Musk using it as a distraction from the mounting troubles facing his businesses? Well, Down Detector, a site that tracks website failure, showed a surge of outage reports starting around 5:45 a.m. on Monday. With another wave occurring midday, users were met with error messages when trying to load posts, while some reported that a mobile app was completely unresponsive. Musk quickly took to X to explain the problem, right after a post by a cryptocurrency influencer who suggested that recent protests against Musk's other ventures such as Tesla and his controversial Department of Government Efficiency initiative might be linked to the outage. Later in the day, Musk doubled down on his claims during an interview on Fox Business, suggesting that the cyber attack may have originated from Ukraine. Let's watch.
Well, we're not sure exactly what happened, but there was a massive cyber attack to try to bring down the X system with IP addresses originating in the Ukraine area.
Oh, well, so that's your suspicion. Is the website, is the internet up? Is it up yet?
It's up, yeah.
It's up yet.
Elon Musk there. His mention of Ukraine comes at a time when tensions between him and the Ukrainian government are rising. Over the weekend, he claimed that Ukraine's entire front line would collapse without his Starlink satellite system, implying that Kyiv was overly dependent on his technology. He also lashed out at U.S. Senator Mark Kelly, calling him a traitor, after the lawmaker publicly supported continued aid to Ukraine. This isn't the first time Musk has linked a major tech failure to external forces. When his high-profile live-streamed interview with President Donald Trump crashed last year, he blamed a massive DDoS attack though internal sources later revealed that the outage was due to technical failures, not cyber attacks. Could Musk's latest accusation be another example of him deflecting blame onto geopolitical enemies? Or is there a legitimate cyber warfare threat against his companies? Think about that. The X outage is just one of several recent challenges for Musk. On Friday, one of his SpaceX rockets exploded mid-flight, sending debris falling near the Bahamas. Meanwhile, Tesla is facing backlash also, with Tesla takedown, protests targeting its dealerships, a growing number of owners selling their vehicles, and the company's stock price plunging to its lowest level in months. Adding to Musk's troubles, his relationship with President Trump may be shifting. On Friday, Trump reportedly had a tense meeting with Musk and his cabinet members, where he suggested reining in Musk's influence over government efficiency. The billionaire has used his power to cut federal employees across multiple agencies in his push for efficiency. But it seems the new administration may no longer be fully aligned with his aggressive cost-cutting approach. Musk's claim of a cyber attack raises serious questions about the security of major social media platforms and the risks of digital warfare. However, his history of making bold, unverified claims also invites skepticism. If a nation-state was truly behind the outage, what does that mean for the future of cybersecurity? At the same time, Musk's growing list of controversy is causing increasing scrutiny of his leadership. If his companies continue to struggle and public confidence in his decision weakens, could this influence in both the business and political world begin to fade? Well, coming to the climax of this report, in recent times, the billionaire Elon Musk has constantly faced backlash and controversy surrounding his leadership. This crackdown serves as a threat to his business and political career. Well, at best, Musk would have to up his game to protect his public interest and confidence. We hope to see a positive feedback in the coming days. Until next time, this is where I'll be drawing the curtain on today's edition of Flash News. Remember, I'll be bringing you untold stories from the home front at the top of the hour, 8 p.m. Until then, do have a pleasant day.